Repulsor Ray with 15 watts of audio power, driven to 6 ohm 5 watt speakers in series, mounted in the bottom enclosure. A weed whacker that lost its bearing. We want to have to use that for a purpose, aren't we? Just happens to have a trigger and a hole mix. What's really cool, now we have a little bit apart. We can use the handle and the trigger for the repulsor ray gun, or whatever we're going to make. We can use, took the motor apart, we can use some of the coils and put them on the outside. It'd be cool. The housing can be sheared off right here and go on the end. And then the inside of the motor actually looks really cool for the driver end and stuff, and put some lights on the end and make that a big body and have some fun with it. Anyways, looking good. Wow, found this really cool lettuce keeper at Goodwill. Cost me 99 cents. Cool. This is the getting close to the final draft of the Repulsor Ray gun. The electronics are working decently now, though not perfect. You can always go back and make software adjustments. After several tries of driving the DFPlayer, either from software routines or various hardware, for example, optocouplers and ITC level isolators, finally opted on the old tried and true simple relay. And the DFPlayer will play different tracks based on a voltage drop on its signal. So there's a couple resistors there. Right now it's grounded, so it's playing track 1. There's another resistor on the output, and so when it fires, the trigger fires, the lights will change, and then the soundtrack will change to the routine for the charge up and fire routine. So give it a shot, see what happens here. We have a little bit of timing to work on at the end, but there's other improvements we could make, go through. But the point now, it's pretty much roughed in about how we're going to accomplish this project. And what we end up working on too is the sound system. That's just one small speaker. I want to get some bigger speakers with a little bit more power so we can hear. Actually, there's a lot of bass missing from the explosion. So we'd like to have that big peak on that explosion part. With the electronics now taken from breadboards and soldered into wire boards, you see now that the electronics are a lot smaller now. So what we're going to go ahead and do is do a demo of the electronics just as they are right now. They're looking better. This is a dry fit of the barrel section of the Repulsor Ray gun. This is the lettuce keeper. This is the barrel of the weed whacker that's been sliced up into spacers. The end piece. These are the Christmas ball ornaments. You purchased, they're hollow and they split in half. We'll take this apart and show you the pieces. This is the disassembled part of the barrel of the rifle. A drill bit was used to drill this plastic lettuce keeper with a 1-inch bit. Probably would have done it a different way using a Dremel tool on it. Had thought about it time. This is the weed whacker main barrel. There's the yellow barrel pieces that have been sliced into 1 3/4 inch pieces as a spacer. These are the Christmas ornament balls that have been opened up with a Dremel tool to allow the 1-inch shaft to go through. This next step involves cutting foam board the same size as the plastic globes or ornament holders, and the purpose of these foam board circles is to have a support landing for the NeoPixel rings. So you trace them out and then cut them with the razor blade. You also cut the center hole. Get them in there and then coat them with some spray glue and put a mylar film on them if you'd like to spiff them up. One thing to be careful with, this mylar, I used a mylar blanket. They're really cheap, and you get a 6 by 6 foot piece for $1. So the reason that I'm using 2 colors is the gold side's conductive. If you check it with an ohm meter, it's very, very, very conductive. So you don't want to get any of your leads on it at all. The silver side is not conductive, so I've had the silver side put on the top, and then when the leads get through, the back side will be gold. I like the gold color better, but I don't want any chance of having any short circuits, so that's the reason it's that way. And you see the hole's already been cut in this piece for the solid pipe in the middle to go through. Now that the spray-on glue is dried, the foam backing rings are trimmed up with the mylar, the holes cut out for the wires, and the next step is to hot glue the NeoPixel ring to the corresponding foam ring with a mylar coating on it to give it a reflective surface. This is the main shaft of the weed whacker, which is going to be used to hold all the NeoPixels and the bulbs and everything. One thing to make note here, here's the end piece on here. As we fit these and put these together, I'm going to have to drill underneath. These are the sides for the handle, screw through, and we have these holes. These are going to be underneath the assembly, so we're flipping it over so we can see it. We need to have a hole drilled at the seam of every bubble where the NeoPixels are, so that the wires can feed into the pipe, so they remain hidden. This is a progress. So far, the first globe was installed with the LEDs, and it was fished. The wires fished through the middle of the rod. The rod was coated with the mylar. The second one was added. Same thing. The wires are run through the pipe. There's a lot of misalignment issues. If we had some better equipment for drilling the holes in the globe so they'd be exactly center, and all these things would line up a lot better, but you had to do some little bit of trimming,
and leave room for adjustments, things like that. Okay, so the next one is the big globe and then the one on the end. Then we will build the box. Okay, the barrel is fully assembled. And this is what the repulsor array looks like just with the LEDs running. There's the controller. And still running off a small speaker. Hit the trigger. The next step will be to pack up the electronics into a box, electrical box that will sit in back of the dome. To see that one more time. That's the trigger. To house the electronics, we have got a $5 plastic ammo box. It works out real nice, nice size. We drilled a hole in there for the aluminum tube for the support it's going to slide on, and then there's a hole drilled in for the switch. And with all projects that are battery powered, I always put at least one inline fuse, if not multiple inline fuses, so that this has been harnessed so that the wires come out of the bottom. I can get to them and wire them up. And we'll put the switch in. We'll put some mylar on the box first before we mount it. The box is installed on the shaft of the ray gun. You see the spacers have been removed so it can slide up and down. The whole assembly moves up and down so we can work with it. The next step is going to be to hot glue this end in right there, so that everything's not rotating so freely, and we can get a good base and start installing the circuits and the wires, attaching the wires inside. With the box mounted and the wires pulled in, before we start the final from the electronics box, do another dry run, hook the electronics all back up again, make sure everything is working every step of the way, otherwise you get teared apart again. Yeah, it looks like it's doing okay for now. Now as we build this thing back together, putting the components, electrical components, on these foam boards so that they can be mounted inside and stuffed in the box, and have cleaned up a lot of the wiring. But it's still good every now and then, after I get a bunch of the wiring fixed up, that I still hooked up a bunch of the wires kind of temporary and go back and retry it. Okay, so there's an on switch for it now, and so everything's booted up. We can see things working. So all the lights are working still, and so far the wiring's holding intact, so we can be assured that a lot of it is still working. And we'll fire the trigger. And there we go, it did fire. Alright, so haven't broken anything yet. So we'll continue to clean the wiring up and get it ready for installation into the box. Okay, got a lot of the wiring cleaned up, starting to shove everything in the box pretty tight. There is the balance of the first foam board with electronics on it. A bunch of the wiring will be tucked inside the box. Everything is still working. Nano and everything out here has got some final cleanup wire on the power wiring. Everything's still working. So that's a good thing. And here we have the last card tucked in, and the wires mostly tucked in, getting ready to close it up with the battery. Okay, we have the repulsor array put together. And there it goes. As it looks like that, dark in the room, that we'll go ahead and pull the trigger, fire it.